Harold, what's your forecast for Asian stocks for 2021 amidst, I guess, all this positive momentum that we've been seeing on the vaccine and stimulus fronts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positive news coming from that particular front. In general, actually, our forecast is only for maybe high teens upsides in Asian equities, because we've seen a big rally already. Where we think the opportunities really lie is not just in exposure to all the markets, but switching between the markets. There are certain markets that have still down actually year to date. We're coming out of a period of massive dislocation between markets. At one point in time, China was up 20% and Thailand was down 30%. That's a 50% gap. So what we're seeing now, that's I presume also appropriate in the year of the auction tend to move in herds, that all these countries and performances start to come a little bit together again. And that means some of these underperformers catching up. And so that's where we would be looking for a little bit.
Yeah, when you say that underperformance, you're saying that ASEAN is back. Talk us through, I guess, some of the investment themes here you're looking at, particularly, I guess, in the telco and also the tech space.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, parts of ASEAN are actually quite solid businesses, but the size of the market and the way they depend on kind of global liquidity flows makes them a bit more volatile than the nature of the companies themselves would suggest. So you got very good cash-generative businesses in parts of ASEAN, telecommunications, food companies, stuff like that. And that's where you probably want to go. And those companies would catch up the most. They have been hurt over the last 9 months or something like that, seriously underperformed. And they're coming back onto people's radar screens at the moment.
Let's talk as well what we've been seeing in the China tech sector. I mean, Alibaba rebounding today, but this has been quite concerning about how far this could spill over into tech as well. And we've got a chart showing that it's been quite a roller coaster ride here. What's your outlook for the China tech space for 2021?
Well, we've been a little bit more cautious on that particular sector since, effectively, actually, since probably late summer or so. We reiterated that in mid-November. That was not really related to the reasons why what you're talking about was more related to the fact that we thought bond yields would go up, cyclicals would perform a little bit better, valuations in those sectors had already expanded quite a lot. If you look at history, in that particular sector, we're at valuations where typically other sectors, which are similar kinds of runs, think about the mobile companies in 2006 and 2007 in China, for example, started to peak out. Things are a little bit different now. There will structurally be demand for good growth companies, such as the internet names, over the course of the next couple of years, given that interest rates and growth around the world is so low. But we felt there was simply a kind of a valuation risk to that particular sector. So we moved into some of the value markets, Korea, Hong Kong, and value sectors as well a couple of months ago. And we'll probably continue with this. And what is unfolding at the moment, what you were referring to, is, of course, just additional news, you could say, that justifies that particular position.
Harold, it's Richard. I like your research suggesting that this is the year of the ox coming up as well, and saying goodbye to the year of the rat, where there was wide dispersion. But you're saying it's back to the herd. Tell us why. So yeah, rats move on their own in all kinds of different kind of directions. Herds, they of course, oxen, they move in herds. They all move together. So what we expect to see is effectively, this is the nice analogy we can make, is that the ones that have really performed very well and were ahead of the herd, such as the China internet names, would just slow down a little bit, and the ones that were left behind by the herds and struggled to keep up. Such as some of the ASEAN markets, but you can go deeper into markets as well, into particular sectors. Think about some of the more cyclical sectors, etc. We expect them to catch up as well. So that's an analogy that works for us in terms of the views that we have for 2021. Harold, also, I mean, you're looking, as you just alluded to, looking for growth stories that have lagged this year. Can you give us an idea of some of them? You're talking perhaps about nations, but maybe companies here as well, or industry groups too, which have been left by the wayside when perhaps they shouldn't have been.
Yeah, no, across the region, I think there's actually still quite plenty of opportunities to look around. For example, in Korea, we like DRAM. That is a sector that has been a little bit left behind for a variety of reasons, and starting to see good signs in terms of pricing coming back. In China, it would be sectors such as autos, maybe light industrials, part of the consumer sector, that performed already quite well, but there's still stocks in there that look interesting. I mentioned ASEAN already, and you can extend it into India. It's a market that has rallied a lot as well throughout the latter part of this year, but still some of the domestic plays there look actually quite interesting. So we're halfway through some kind of adjustment period whereby we go back towards some kind of more normalized performance of markets, you could say, and that means there's still plenty of these opportunities around.
Indeed, growth versus value is quite often something people look at, but it's not as binary as all that, is it, Harold? And overlaying all that surely would be things which are coming on stream this year, which, or should I say next year, which perhaps are forgotten during the pandemic. And I'm talking about companies and industries which are going to be benefiting from the rollout of 5G.
No, absolutely. So some of these themes will come back. We've had a tremendous focus, of course, on the pandemic. It seems that we're at in the second half of that game, you could say. Across the world, people get access to vaccines that hopefully would normalize things a little bit throughout 2021 and into 2022. Yeah, that means that some of the older themes would come back. 5G is one of them. Travel across the region could be another theme. Another interesting theme that is developing, I think, is the rise of retail investors across the region. We see large-scale retail participation in markets to levels that we haven't seen before, and that impacts, financial companies, brokerages, stock exchanges, you name it.